Okay, we're talking about this idea of fruiting walls. What is a fruiting wall? What's it going to look like?
Yeah, well, fruiting wall is just a very somewhat intuitive description, isn't it, of a different approach to managing your fruit trees. I began almost 20 years ago now at Washington State University, and the industry was comprised of older orchards, cherry orchards, with, as you described, large trees, very complex structures, often 20 feet tall. So these required a lot of labor for the purposes of pruning, tall ladders. And then when it comes to harvest, those ladders come back with people carrying buckets, climbing up and down and moving ladders. And I recognized quite quickly that actually, first of all, I wasn't really very confident in giving growers advice on how to prune those trees, because each tree was so very different and very complicated and required a lot of interpretation. So we went back to the beginning and saying, well, what can you buy from the nurseries? What do you plant? And how do you take advantage of that? How do you take advantage of the way that cherry likes to grow naturally? And from that, this concept of fruiting wall, and then more specifically of the upright fruiting offshoot architecture, which is one way of creating a fruiting wall, was really developed.
Let's say I want to create a fruiting wall, UFO style, in my garden. I guess the first step is to buy the tree. Are there any thoughts or suggestions as to what kind of tree to select to start off?
One of the reasons that we were working on this architecture was because of the nursery stock that was available commercially, which you've already used this phrase, and so your listeners may be used to it, which is a whip, which is an unbranched young tree. That's very well suited to the structure, and that's where we want to begin, actually.
So we've got our whip, that young fruit tree that we would have gotten from a specialist fruit tree nursery. Do we need to plant it along a wall or a fence? Do we need to construct a simple trellis?
Simple trellis systems are probably necessary, and that can be literally as simple as a few end posts and 2 to 3 wires, perhaps spaced about a meter apart. The key will be your first wire. You're going to want the height somewhere around 20 inches, 22 inches, and that's because that's the height at which you want to establish that horizontal leader. And then the key is to, at the time of planting, is actually to plant the tree at a 45-degree angle in the ground.
So we've planted our tree on a 45-degree angle. It is a whip. It has no side branches. Do we only tie down the rest of that branch onto the horizontal at the end of the season, or do we wait till year 2?
So typically you'll do it in the same season, just later in the year, maybe late summer, early fall. The only trick here is to catch that moment before the tree has become too lignified and you're unable then subsequently to bring the end horizontal to the wire.
Year 1, we have planted on diagonal. We have eventually tied it down to the branch. So our leader, our trunk, quote unquote, is now horizontal. Mm-hmm. Year 2, what happens in year 2? Because obviously not much to prune yet. How do we get these upright shoots to create that jail cell look for us?
After the first year, you're exactly right. Your tree will still be coming out of the ground at 45 degrees. And then as it reaches the wire, it will be then transition to horizontal. And if you've had new shoot growth, which you should have in the first year, you'll have at least 1, maybe 2 new of those first uprights. Year 2, you are looking for new shoots across the top of that wire, across the top of that horizontal limb to fill in the space. You've got that gap now between trees that needs to be filled in.
What's going to happen in year 3?
So year 3 is a transition year into fruiting. And really in year 3, your goals haven't changed. You want to have well-spaced upright wood. And your goal now is to get these terminal shoots to develop and grow towards the top of your structure, of your trellis structure.
Now, as time goes on, though, your upright shoots are going to get side branches.
Then now we're getting into the sort of the year 3 and beyond, the routine pruning decisions. And the first fundamental pruning rule for UFO is to remove lateral shoots. So, for example, if in the second year you had a new shoot grow vertically, and then it stopped and it was fine after the first growing in that second year. Now in the next season, you'll tend to have a few lateral shoots towards the terminal end of that branch and the new extension growth. So you look for lateral growth off these vertical uprights and you prune it back.
You prune it back or you prune it off? Do we want to get rid of it completely, or do we want to leave little branchlets that maybe might produce fruit?
So that really is a good question, gets into the subtleties, into the art of understanding the cultivar that you have and its fruiting habit. You could do either. You could remove those lateral shoots entirely and leaving no opportunity for regrowth, or if you have a cultivar that does set a lot of lateral branches and sets a lot of fruit at the base of lateral branches, you can just cut those back very short, let's say 2 to 3 inches, and capture that fruit that will be at the base of that shoot. And that's a decision that you'd have to learn from experience with the cultivar that you have in your growing location.